Welcome to Pitchslap.
Nice.
All right, so got Trevor here. Is it Trevor Von Warden? Trevor Van Warden?
I go with Van Woerden. Yep.
Trevor Van Warden. All right.
Yep.
It's always
Yep.
important to get people's names correct.
Thank you.
And this is one of those guys I stumbled upon on LinkedIn.
Yes, you did.
And
Or did I stumble on you? I don't know. One way or the other. We found each other.
yeah, one way or the other, we bumped. Yeah.
We did.
How about
Yes.
that? And I think we're mutually non sequitur, and I think we're mutually endearing.
In our own
And,
ways.
Yeah. Take it for what you will.
Yeah.
And Social Saturday. We
Yeah.
got wrapped up in that MLM.
Yeah, that would have been like May, a year ago. Well, just over a year ago now.
Happy anniversary, love.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that. So those are good times. Good times.
And you're guest number one.
Awesome. I love it. Worked hard to get here.
Exactly. And you have no stage fright. Trevor
None.
is you've got Hotness Unleasher Studios. We'll get into that later.
Okay, sounds good.
But what bucket are we throwing you in? You a sales guy?
I am a sales guy.
All right, sales guy call.
I'm a
How'd you
seller
start?
mindset. Well, let's call it. I have a seller's mindset. I want to go with that.
That just means low IQ to most people listening.
Maybe. Let's say, a seller's mindset is I am focused on solving problems that my customers have.
So where'd that start? When was your
Wow.
first opportunity doing that, man?
My first job in sales was, well, I want to back up. When I came to the realization that I wanted to be a seller on the day after I graduated from college with a degree in chemistry. I had flunked my GRE. I was summa cum laude graduate, all this stuff. I didn't study for the GRE. Took the chemistry test, got the 9th percentile, and was not accepted to any graduate programs. Was banned. So I had to figure out what the hell am I going to do. So, being a college kid out of town, I had accumulated a bunch of stuff. So a bunch of us decided we're going to have a garage sale.
Okay.
And that was my first selling experience. And I loved it. I absolutely loved that experience. I've hated every garage sale since, but that day was stuck indelibly, etched into my mind as an experience I loved. I loved packaging. I loved saying, well, if you want these plates, you got to take this beat up old lawnmower, guess what? If you want these cassette tapes, I'll give them to you free, but you got to take, this, I don't know, this old broken toaster. So it was like that. It was like this kind of like, how do we get stuff done? How do we move it? How do we make money? And it was really fun. So fast forward a couple years, I had a job as a technical writer, and believe it or not, now I write passively, as we discussed previously, ad nauseum. But had a job as a technical writer. I wrote manuals on how to put together power equipment. So power tools. So like planers and table saws and all that stuff. And so I hated that. Prayed every day I'd get fired. And so then I got hired. My first sales job, to your question, I'll get there, was with Merck Pharmaceuticals. So I had that chemistry degree. They wanted people with science backgrounds who could, look at organic, representations of, organic chemistry kind of stuff, and look at the prescribing information and talk to doctors and have that, at least have that undergraduate background in common. And on the third day of training, the first real sales message that came through was from George Merck, who said, put the needs of the patient first, and as long as you do that, the profits will always follow. And that never left me. That hasn't left me. That left Merck after a while. Well, long after I left, they sold their soul after making some pretty bad decisions. But that never left me. I have kept that in my sort of as my operating MO since, gosh, that would have been in the mid to late. It would have been like 1996 or 7, somewhere in there, when I got going. And so as a mid to late 90s drug rep, which I was, right, I got a company car, and we gave away drug samples, and we wore suit, or coat and tie, right, and we had a bag, and we'd go out talk to doctors, and you had to get very, very good at delivering a value message in a very short period of time, and deal with gatekeepers, be focused on the client, focused on what that physician needed, and understand how the whole process worked. So there you go. I did that for a few years, and then the internet sort of exploded, and that's that. I went in that direction.
Let's roll back to Merck. So
Okay.
you're selling to your customers' customers as a non-physician.
Yes. So I was selling to physicians, convincing them to prescribe a 4 or 5 medications that I was a specialist in. So would have been at that time Pepsid, which we know and love, right? It's over the counter now. A product called Zocor, which competes with Lipitor, and we just totally got our asses handed to us, which was really the demise of the company. But a couple of antihypertension medications, stuff like that.
So a lot of people would, like, when I'm thinking of pharma sales, it's the rolling suitcase and relationship. It's bringing a rolling suitcase and some donuts, and that's the du jour.
Yeah. I mean, there was. I didn't have a rolling suitcase, but I had a big bag, and in fact, I still have that bag. I still use it to this day. And it's just part of my deal. But the donut, you bring up the donuts, and the donuts are a really good, an interesting example, because that part of selling, I think, speaks to where we find ourselves, particularly in B2B today. And that is having to focus on the humans involved in these decisions, right? Involved in these purchase decisions. And that the donut or the golf or the whatever it was, right? The dinner was actually more common, was a way to sit down, right? A way to sit down, to talk, to have a conversation that went beyond, the benefits of this medication or the design of a study or whatever. It was how to actually engage and be accountable to whatever it was that I was trying to pitch, because the doctor depended on that information in order to make decisions for his or her patients, right? And that trust needed to be there. They needed to walk in and know that they were getting good information from their rep, not something that was misleading. And in fact, it brings up a good memory. I had this one doc local, and he was writing. I represented Pepsid, so I knew what that was about, and I also sold it was a CHF. It was a congestive heart failure drug, and it was like in the, I can't remember what the class was at this point, but anyway, the patient had heartburn, so he was going to write Tagamet, right? So Tagamet and Pepsid and Zyrtec, not Zyrtec. Anyway, I can't remember. They're all sort of the same class, and it wasn't Zyrtec. That's going to bug me now. Anyway, it got banned because it had cancer stuff. Anyway,
what doesn't?
Yeah. He was going to write Tagamet, and I'm like, dude, you can't write. And I was sitting literally in the office, because he was like, I'm going to write Tagamet. I'm going to write this other thing. I'm like, dude, you can't write that. I said, what? I said, because there's it's banned. These two drugs interact. Right?
Counterindicative, right?
Well, it's like a black label box. It's like a black box or something. It's been so long since I've been in it. I can't.
No worries.
At the time, I knew what I was talking about, but it's a distinct memory, and I had the right to get there, right? Because I was friends. I had invested in creating a relationship with this physician that, was built on, his, helping him become, a better expert, taking it seriously, putting the needs of his patients before the needs of my commission, and proving that over time. And then I was in this opportunity, like, oh crap, dude, you can't do you. And he was like, oh, you're totally right. And he switched it, right? And I ended up getting the prescription. He wrote Pepsid because it didn't have that, but that wasn't what it was about, right? It was about being in a place where I could really be impactful in a meaningful way. So
Is it possible to do that without having that core ethos in yourself? If you're somebody that's breaking bread with another, with a customer, or you're doing an event with them, like you said, golf, and I may even say breaking cookies. We're not yet sponsored by Grove Cookie Company, but I think we're the only ones that
okay,
aren't.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, they've taken over LinkedIn. It's awesome. I love those guys.
Good for them. Maybe we'll
Yes.
have them on, or at
Yeah.
least around.
Okay.
Do you find that when you're building a long-term book of business, that mutual respect and that trust is important? Do you find it to be harmful in the short-term book of business?
I think that the no, I no,
It's
I
always good to
don't.
be good.
It's always good to be good. Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, particularly in these these businesses that we're in these days that depend on renewal, right? That depend on a long-term, agreement to continue. Um, I haven't found it ever to be worth it to really try to be a huckster, right? And just and put a lot of pressure and to lie or otherwise obfuscate the the benefits or something, and make it more than it is, and try to be as honest as I can, because I find that, gosh, that you never know how that's going to come back, right?
Mm-mm.
It's like we have to be accountable to what it is we're selling, and it and I've been in media for a long time, right? And one of the challenges with media is that it's hard to flip and figure out whether it's working. It is difficult. Attribution has always been hard. And so I've had to kind of sit with that tension for a really long time. And it I find that, if I'm just honest and straightforward and upfront with people at the beginning, about what to expect, how to treat the results that they get, and then move on from there, then things seem to work out okay.
Yeah. So you said you got .com happened. We're talking pre-bubble or post-bubble? Let's talk the whole story. All right.
Very much pre. So I was working for Merck, as I said, and at that time, AT&T opened up their cell phone plans, so you could dial anywhere in the country, so flat rate, right? So it didn't matter. There was no long distance anymore. It was that went away.
Right.
And at that time, it was it was on a Nokia phone. I don't know if you remember them, but they were distinct.
Oh yeah, I've still got my candy bars.
They look like a little candy bar, right?
Yep.
So I had one of those, and a buddy of mine, who now works at Microsoft, was actually working at Microsoft at the time, and now he's been there off and on for decades now. But he says, "Hey, I made this website. It's called 15 Seconds." And I said, "Okay, I don't care." And he's like, 15 seconds is the amount of time that somebody is willing to wait for a web page to load. So yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. And it was about active server pages and so it was about web development at the time. And it was about, I don't know, Microsoft developers and stuff. It's like, okay. And he says, I need you to sell the advertising. I'm like, what? Okay. Sounds like fun. So we started selling the advertising, and this would have been in the late 90s. So it would have been 97, 98, something like that. And and we were making money, like real money at the time. And we split it straight up down the middle. He owned the website. But I was in charge of all the sales, the pricing, you name it, collecting the money, getting it. And once I got paid, then I'd send him half the money, and off we went. And it was so much fun, man. And so I was doing the Merc job, and then I was doing this 15 seconds job, because I had all this time on my hands of driving up and down the freeway, and there were no rules at that time. You could talk on your cell phone all you wanted. So I was just yapping along, and everybody was taking calls in those days. So you call and, hey, get through the agency. Yeah, I got this thing. Da, da, da. Well, nobody else had. So boom, they buy it, and off we went. Well, then he sold that site. He sold that site to a company called internet.com. And I was then able to get hired by them as a director of advertising or whatever, and left Merck and went to work for them, full time, representing a whole suite of websites that are now owned by a company called Technology Advice. And they're still active, and they're out here, and they do good business. They've been sold a couple times, different companies.
So would you call publisher inventory tech sales? Or are you still thinking this is a media category?
Oh, it's definitely a media category. I don't even really know how to relate to it, right? It's because it's not SaaS necessarily, right? It's not that. It's different. It's not a tool, right? It's media. And it's, we used to do battle with the print guys back when print was still, because print at that time was still pretty viable, and the print guys were always just killing it, right? Making money like hand over fist. And print was a magical thing. I actually did get a chance to sell that much later, but it we were always kind of chagrined at that, but it wasn't ever tech sales necessarily. It was like peripheral, if you will. It was always to the technology companies, in and around and about, supporting their audiences, supporting their ICPs, supporting, whatever was going on.
And you were talking about attribution being it's tough today.
Yeah.
Back then, what were you selling on? Blind faith or the odometer at the bottom of the web page?
Oh man, in the 90s, it was wide open, right? We didn't really start to get hammered hard until the PPC model emerged, as a sort of by virtue of what Google was doing.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted Google, they wanted clicks, they wanted to pay for clicks, but but there wasn't a whole lot of control, right? The ability to control the bots and the fake clicks and all that was totally crazed. And so what happened was, you'd sell them the clicks and they'd see the clicks, but they weren't, they would be like ridiculously high, 5, 10, 20% on a banner. And you're just like, what, what? That doesn't even make sense. So there was a lot of broken stuff that was happening. And mostly at the end of the day, they just wanted to see their stuff in lights, right? They wanted to see their name in lights. I worked for and there is some technical, there are some technical things that we don't, that come out of these experiences. I sold for a company called, at the time it was Inside Network, and it had been purchased by the company that I worked for, and they said, all right, Trevor, why don't you go represent Inside Network? And so this would have been around 2012, 2013, give or take. And so Inside Network owned a bunch of sites that were Inside Facebook, Inside Social Games, Inside something else. Anyway, there was 3 or 4 of them, and so I was a guy. I repped them. And we had an ad server. We didn't have an ad server. We didn't have a proper ad server. It was a homebrew thing that the guy who built the site made, right? And advertisers would come in and they'd buy it, and they loved it. Like he did, whatever his juju was, they could see the traffic coming back, right? Google Analytics picked it up, and they were super stoked about it. And the banners were great, and they could see the banners, and they could see their competitors, whatever they were doing. And it was just a killer thing. It was like great time. Everybody's just thrilled. They were throwing money at it like crazy. And then we decided to implement DoubleClick or something at the time, which is an ad server. And all hell broke loose, right? All the attribution got broken. The advertisers couldn't see it coming back. They couldn't, there was no, they couldn't, and they all canceled. And it basically, the whole thing just basically folded. And there were some other things that were going on, but, classic Facebook decided to shut down its API. And so they couldn't get data anymore. So that sucked. And then in social games, were like a mushroom. They just exploded and they died,
Yeah.
So that happened. And then, but we wrote it while we did, and it was super fun when it was working. And so there are techie things. And then there are experiences where, like they really do see, so the last one I was on before Infuse was a company called Accident Data Center. And this is macabre as macabre gets, but it was based on the idea that you could, and the fact actually that Google would reward curated content. So what we did is what the founder did, and then I came on to sell it, was he would capture and curate stories about motor vehicle accidents. And so you'd get, on any individual accident, you'd get half a dozen news reports about it. And so we put them all in one place. We called it accidentdatacenter.com, put them all in one place. And Google loved this. They hate it today. Like they literally just, they hate curation. They just cannot even, it's non-business. Don't get into it. But at the time, they rewarded it so the traffic was just amazing. And so we went out to personal injury lawyers and we sold advertising to them on a aggregated regional basis. So that corresponded to Nielsen. There's a name for it, whatever the Nielsen zones are, right? And it's been a while since I was in that, but it was a good business. It was really, and we felt really good about it because what would happen is the families, right, who had family members who were injured or died or had real trauma, they would find this site and we curated, discussion boards and things. So they would come on and they would talk about their, the experience and, the trouble and all this. And then the accident lawyers would get cases. They actually got bona fide cases from it. So, we can debate the merits of the personal injury lawyer business, but I for one came to believe that it's a fantastic business, and without that business, people would just be getting screwed left, right, upside down, inside out, because the insurance companies are not their friends, and the lawyers are there to fight for them. Yeah, they get paid a lot, but they only get paid on contingency. And if you're hurt and you can't make good decisions, then you need help, and they're there to do that. So we felt like that was, an ethical business, provided value, and we delivered cases. And then Google decided that we don't really like curation anymore. So it died. And that was the end of that. So, yeah.
Good deal.
So to your question, sometimes, yeah, there's absolutely attribution. Sometimes like you can totally get it. You can see it. It works. Wonderful. Sometimes it's very difficult, and it just kind of depends.
You're going again into your customer's customer. That seems to be where your love is.
It must be. Yeah, my customer's customer.
Yeah. So speaking of your love, you're one of the inspirations for this whole thing going on. I have become a strong believer in advice sucks.
Okay.
And that the only right form of advice, the only form that works, is for you to tell your story, where things went wrong, where things went great, and have people echo chamber it in their head. Oh, wow, I'm living a similar experience.
Okay.
And instead of you telling them, oh, you should do blank, you say, I wish I would have done blank, or I did do blank. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to go there with you.
Okay.
I want to go into community. I want to go into this Trevor as of what? These past 3 years? 2 years? current Trevor.
Okay, fair enough.
What the heck happened, dude? What's this community? I wouldn't call you a bona fide sales guy anymore. I don't know what to
Okay,
call you. What do you call yourself?
what do I call myself? Well, I am uh, I'm trying to figure that out, right? So it really, a lot of it boils down to LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn as a social network. That's where we met. That's where I have met and created a lot of friendships. I mark October of 2019 as a date that will live in infamy, which was the when I started a video series called B2B Content Marketing Inspector, and it still exists. I'm pretty sure I reviewed Okta. I remember reviewing Okta at that time, and I remember thinking about them as sort of Orwellian, right? There was kind of this. They had a very blue vibe to them, and they yeah, but they had the Twitter account or something was really on fire. Like it was like really like legit. It felt authentic, like there was a real voice there. So basically, that was kind of the start of my LinkedIn journey. And I was a creator, but I just literally did not ever ask anybody ever for help. Right? I literally tried to create content over and over and over again that I felt was on brand, was reflective of what I was doing and am still doing for my employment in the demand generation space, but nobody cared, right? Like nobody engaged that, and up until I met Danny Wolf and Carrie Gard. And Brandon Lee kind of a little bit before that, but it was really the moment of meeting them, meeting Danny and Carrie. Well, about approximately April-ish of last year, 2022. That they really changed really everything for me. And that they said, hey, you like Danny, it's like rings in my ear. She said, you gotta, and she was on a podcast with Carrie. It wasn't live. There was no accessibility, right? I wasn't talking to her. She was just on a podcast. And I said, and she says, you gotta, if you have a voice, join the conversation. And that, that rings in my ears every bit as much as the George Merck saying, right? It's like, join the conversation. And I realized at that moment that I got nothing to lose here. I'm 4 years in to an experience on LinkedIn that isn't growing, that isn't engaging, that I don't know how to deal with, that nobody's wanting to talk to me. There's no conversation. There's no learning. I'm just megaphone-itis, right? I'm just blasting out stuff that nobody cares about. It was original, but still, it wasn't going anywhere. And I wasn't getting better. So when Danny said that, I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then like the next day, practically, Social Saturday starts up. I meet you, and everything changed, right? I tried it with butter. Everything changed. So that really kicked off like an explosion of energy for me. And I think that it had to do with being in a vacuum, or being kind of just in my own sort of, isolation box, work from home. Yeah. I mean, I have colleagues, I have a boss. My boss is fantastic, right? He's great. Very supportive. CEO's fine. They're all great. Good. It's a good company. I like them. But at the same time, I'm working at home, working alone, right? I'm trying to get appointments. I'm trying to talk to people and nobody's talking. And all of a sudden people start talking to me. And holy crap, if you go for a long enough time and don't talk to anybody and all of a sudden people start talking to you, it's like an oasis out from the Sahara. Like you just crawled up to it and you just cannot stop drinking. And so that was really the experience that I was having, right when I met you, and then I met, just continued to meet, tons and tons of people, and many of whom have become really, close friends, who I talk to consistently throughout the week, and support me and cheer me on and give me feedback, and I return the favor, right? And we're engaged in each other's lives, and it's been deeply rewarding. So out of that, to your question, came a lot more curiosity and a lot more openness to seeing what else was out there, right? What else could I be doing? What am I actually doing? Where do I fit in? So to your point, I tried on the hat of, am I actually doing product marketing per se? Because a lot of what I am doing today has a marketing motion to it, right? And certainly a selling motion. And also in my unique space right now, I'm actually, when I work with a client, we custom build their product, if you will. So it's a set of services, and they're sort of modular, and we kind of put them together in a way that works for them. So in that way, and then I work with client success, and so we've kind of got these. When you think about the Venn diagram of how product marketing, at least as a PMA puts it together, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That does kind of resonate. I'm sort of straddling all of these. Now I'm mostly sales, mostly have a seller's mindset. And so as I joined there, I went out to PMA and I got a product marketing certification, studied it. Then went with Brioni. I can't remember her last name, but in any case, she's like the certification person over there. Did the whole thing, took all the tests, passed them, flunked some to begin with, but it was okay. I did it. I did the work. And, I have April Dunford's book on my desk here somewhere, right? Obviously awesome, which is sort of like the positioning Bible, and just learned all about it. Made me better, I think. But as I got into it, and I really kind of wrestled with it, and I spent time in communities, and thought about, like, what are marketers really doing and talking about? What are they really kind of, how do they tick, and what are they concerned with in general, right? Not obviously any individual is gonna have their own story, but I found I didn't exactly fit in the same, like I kind of thought I did. So I've kind of pulled back a little bit from saying, like, oh, I can think like a marketer necessarily, but I definitely think like a product focused person, right? So I'm really thinking about, does this product do what we say it's going to do? What can we do how do we tweak it? How do we make it fit the problem? Does it render a solution? Is it valuable? And all that kind of stuff. And so that's really what's funny is that's the kind of direction I want to go in my career, is to really kind of dive into be more of a product specialist per se. And what's funny is that I was actually taking a promotion from Merck in the late 90s when I left to get into the internet.com business to actually be a product specialist at the time. So so there you go. So there's some history there.
You can call it full circle.
Yeah.
But on that full circle aspect of it, when you're doing the Merck work, you were talking about, you show up with the sporting tickets, you show up with the donuts, you show up, you're the guest. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like over the years, especially with what you're doing now, you've changed that type of community to where instead of you targeting a single individual, you have a table and you're leaving every seat open for people to come to. Do you feel that is not necessarily the way of the future, but the way of the must?
Man, that is a hell of a question. What a great observation. I think that's this evolution right there, right? Like, that's just what we're in. Yeah. So it's the way of how else are we going to do it? Right. We set these tables and we invite people to join us. And they do, or they don't. Right. And yeah.
Then why are we torturing these poor SDRs?
Oh man, I've been thinking about this so much lately. Today, and I have never served. Have you been in the military? Are you an ex-military guy?
No.
Okay, so I really don't want to make any kind of analogy because I'm not a veteran. So let's not even go there. But I've been thinking about them. Like I've been thinking about SDRs because as a seller who sells to marketers work a lot, and SDRs are increasingly reporting into marketing, but but marketers hate SDRs. I mean, that's a strong word, but it's kind of true. Like they
Yeah, but
endlessly
salespeople hate marketing because they slough it off.
they do.
We
God,
got
we
you
all
those
hate
leads.
we all hate each other, which
What's
is
up with
crazy.
pipe? Where's my pipe?
Yeah, where's my pipeline? Damn it. I don't get any leads, man. I need some revenue. Yeah, no, so it's like we've created these sort of impossibles, right? Where like, okay, we've got these SDRs, we hate what they do, right? We pillory their activities on LinkedIn. We break them down and we say, you got to do better.
Who is the we? Marketers or salespeople, or just the world? The world. They're the whipping children.
The collective we.
Okay.
Right, whoever it is, let's LinkedIn is what 63% marketers or something. So I mean, it's I don't know, somebody, whoever shows up on these posts, and they're usually authored by marketers, and then a bunch of other marketers will show up and they'll say, oh yeah, I hate getting calls, I hate getting phone calls. Okay, hate getting phone calls. Well, why do you turn to your SDR and say, here's a phone, here's your list, and here's your here's your outreach sequencer, right? Your sales loft, whatever. And then expect them to like be effective. Like, we're saying, like, collectively, there's this idea that there's so much noise in the market that you can't break through. And so I got an idea. Let's make more noise. Who can be the noisiest person in an already insanely noisy environment? That something has got to shift, right? And I don't have the answer as we speak, aside from saying, what if, and as controversial as he was with, Nelson Gilead, that guy, he came out and said, basically, we should fire all the SDRs, or not fire. No, sorry. We need to repurpose all the SDRs into, marketing. And everybody kind of freaked out because it was like, oh, well, there's this entire group of extremely talented, right?
Fearless,
gifted. I have nothing but positive feelings for somebody who's in the weeds of SDR work.
That are given bad direction, bad tools,
impossible mandates. I mean, and yet some of them succeed, and you're like, how did you on earth do that, right? And it's like it's hazing ritual or something, man. It's just awful. And
that's always been the case, man. We used to call it working the list in the auto industry. You'd hire the young kid. They'd really want to get into car sales because it was cool. It was cool. I get to work at the dealership. I have access to a demo. Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. And you put a quota on them. Second that number floats above your head, it's a countdown timer. Nothing else.
Yeah.
And so they panic. Month one, grandma comes in and buys a car. Aunt comes in and buys a car. You only have so many grandmas and aunts.
It's true.
So by month 3, the dealership's gotten your whole family for new cars, and they got you on your butt.
Yeah.
And it's just like there's always going to be a modern version of that. Going back to the military thing, I think you were looking for it. My wife hates when I use French words. Was esprit de corps.
Okay.
And that's the spirit of the group. Believe it or not, I learned that in Department of Defense sales. Okay. And what it was that you have a common spirit. There we go. Common spirit of like camaraderie and enthusiasm and a common goal.
Mm-hmm.
And we're missing that in modern sales teams. We've always missed that in sales teams. Let's just get that straight. It's always been cutthroat.
Yeah.
And are you gonna solve that? Are you gonna solve that by being the guy that puts people up with
maybe
344 and Hotness Unleasher? And the whole purpose of this show, this is Pitchslap. Yeah. If you don't do a connect and pitch on here real quick, you're gonna be in trouble.
Connect with me. Yeah. No. I look, I only sell in my current role at Infused Media. I sell to about 100 different accounts. Okay. A few different agencies. So I am here to espouse the virtues of demand generation as a comprehensive practice, and to lift up the various tactics that exist to achieve said goals, and to not disparage or otherwise look down upon a given set of approaches to achieve your demand generation uh, goals, um, and instead look at everything you have as a potential asset and be creative with them. So what I see out here on LinkedIn, what I am constantly and daily doing battle with is when marketing wants to break down or otherwise beat up a given approach. I say that approach is wrong. That approach doesn't work. That approach is inefficient. That approach is low converting. I'm like saying, well, guess what? On its own, everything is low converting, right? Google, Google PPC demand capture will only work at, a little bit of time, because as soon as you go from, endpoint security solution what's the best endpoint security solution, you look it up, you're going to get half a dozen, good solid brands. And you say, well, if that worked, I can go out and buy, some other thing like security solution. Well, is that going to work? I get a bajillion different, all kinds of traffic, but no, that's not going to work. That's not going to convert. Anyway, sorry. How did I even start off on that tangent?
You're supposed to be pitching about your current role or pitching about your projects. You just pitch.
Pitching my current stuff. All right. So I am here for Infused Media to craft and create effective demand generation campaigns as part of an overall comprehensive stack of tactics. And so a lot of that is going to be built around, brand awareness and lead generation, right? And lead generation defined by, using content, distributing content, pushing it, instead of waiting for them to come to you, right? And I know that that's controversial, but guess what? It's still, you can't always get that person to notice. You can't get them to get to you. So we go out, we go find them, we go after their audience, we put content in front of them. If they respond, then, now we've got something to work with. And the way we work with that is where it gets very interesting. So that's what I do for them. On LinkedIn, I'm excited about what's evolving, because, you kind of mentioned 344 Live, right? And the Hotness Unleasher show, we kind of refer to those. I see live streaming as a gigantic opportunity, or an emerging, merging channel, if you will, because what it delivers is real-time accessibility to not only the guest and the host, or guests as it were, but the audience who's also there, who shows up. So in a given moment, in a given hour or half hour, or whatever it is, if you show up there, you're going to get access to those people. They're all actually there with you. And I think in an era of extraordinary noisiness, generative AI that hallucinates, that we're just getting bashed. I think that there will be a craving for more interaction, right? And it's not like this. It's not like the kind of conversation that you and I are having right now. It's different, but it's a little more casual, right? It's a little more, kind of drop in, kind of pull out whatever you need to do. But I love that. And that's why, partially, and because I also like to network and I like to make friends and have done that here, why I've invested so hard in creating these live shows that you've seen, because I really wanted to build that skill, right? How do you host? How do you do it? What actually goes into it? What do I need to think about? Like you, for example, you've got this fantastic throne room, right? And all this background, and all these cool books, and the fireplace, and all this cool stuff, right? And I got these flames behind me, right? These are representations of who we are, right? As a couple of guys out here just doing what we do. And we thought about it, right? Thought about the lighting. We thought about, the quality of the audio. We thought about, how this whole thing was going to come together. And that was a reflection of, kind of who we are in this modern sort of digital selling environment, if you will. And so in terms of pitching, like I really want 1,000 people to sign up, or not to push the attend button for the June 17th show, Hotness and Leisure show.
You don't give me much time to edit. Everybody listening, this is June 9th.
It's June 9th.
6 p.m. my time.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's shoot for the June 17th.
Hotness
on Leisure.
The thing is, like, okay, and this is across the board. When you push the attend button, nothing bad happens. All right. I think people still think that there's this idea that if I push that attend button, I'm going to get spammed to death. Okay. I maybe have gotten, I don't know, maybe a dozen spam DMs off of over nearly 300 live shows that I have pushed the attend button on.
Do you think it's relevant to the show? Do you think that the spam came from that?
Oh yeah, you can tell. LinkedIn it'll identify that if I was messaged by a non-contact by virtue of the show, LinkedIn will disclose that.
So just like groups.
Yeah, when you get the DM, right? So what? Okay, so I got a spam DM, big whoop. I mean, I get spam DMs all the time. I get stuff.
That's where you panic, and that's your next 6 posts, and you're a thought leader on how horrible people are because they have a bot or whatever.
Yeah, or they Pitchslap me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So no, it's like but what you give by doing that to the host, right? To the person who's putting it together, who's conceived of this event as is, excited and maybe a little nervous and has invested in getting a guest and doing all the things that we've done here, lighting and backgrounds and all this stuff. You affirm that effort. And I am a believer in that. And I see, if I get an invite to an event, I'm going to push that attend button. If I do that, I'm going to get the notification that it's up. And if I'm available to go look at it, even for 5 minutes, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave a comment. I'm going to say, hey, it's good to see you. Great show. What's this about? And I pick stuff up too. I pick up like stuff that I didn't expect. I was on Enya Sung's audio yesterday and I picked up, Paul Deitch came on. He goes to every live show and he's awesome. And he was talking and some, other people were kind of going, and like, I didn't know what to expect, but it was okay. I had like 10 minutes. I was off and on, I got some stuff, moved on. Right. And I don't see why why that's so hard to do. And so I am pushing, let's do a big, hairy, audacious goal, a BHAG, if you will. Can we get the Hotness and Leisure show to 1,000 attendees? Even if they don't show up, I don't care. Can we
1,000 RSVPs? Maybe they just need to change the button.
Maybe.
And that's, I will advocate for this in a couple different ways. Number one, this is another echoing of marketers hating when they get phone calls and then turning around and demanding that their XDRs make phone calls. Indeed. Just simple golden rule. Do unto others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just make it happen. I always joke. So as an entrepreneur, I would always joke that the worst possible friend you can have is the friend that says you have a good idea. And it goes back into the old mom test stuff where your mother would tell you, you have a great idea, because they don't want to see you sad.
Right.
But the good friend is a customer. They say, oh, this is a great idea. I totally believe in it. This is something useful for everybody. I'm going to buy one. Or even if they understand it, but it's not something for them, they'll still buy one. And then they'll put it at Trevor's garage sale. And the great friend is the referral. It's not a thing for me, but I'll tell folks about it. I'll make sure somebody comes and buys it from you. I think we all need to work on being great friends to each other.
I think you're right. I think that's a good idea, man. It's a good idea. Sorry.
What? Helping each other out?
I had to go there.
The lowest lift, the lowest effort possible and having a profound impact. Oh my goodness.
All right, brother. What do you need? What do you need? What does a referral look like to you?
Oh, I'm swagger jacking here, man. Total culture vulture. I am only interviewing extremely popular people with cool things. No, that's not true. With cool things going on. Like, you look at Hey Good Chat. I mean,
Yeah.
that's grassroots. We're talking a lot of nonprofit professionals. They don't get the airspace or the airwaves that they need
Mm-hmm.
to get messaging out. I'm not really worried about it for
Okay.
me. All things in time, my man.
All
But I
right.
mean, there is. I'll give you your promo materials. You'll get them out there. People go, oh, I like listening to Trevor. Maybe I'll like listening to Trevor on this show. Maybe whoever's talking to him will bust his balls a little bit.
Maybe.
He's got it coming. And
I do. I do.
yeah.
It's all
So
good.
I mean, that's my lift is easy. It's by lifting others.
Okay.
Super easy. Same as you, buddy. I think
Yeah.
that's why I respect you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's it's definitely a two-way street. It's been
Man, you're
I
pushing
like
me to
seeing.
the 17th though. I love that you mentioned Carrie. She's guest number 2.
Yes.
And it wasn't even by design.
Wasn't so you didn't even know that story?
No, but she had a
Okay.
very profound impact on me as well in a very similar way. So
Yeah. Well, Carrie's got a great story, and her tea time with tech marketers been, it's great. I don't get to listen to it as much as I want, but that those that I have listened to, I've enjoyed thoroughly, and she's going to be a guest
yeah, you
on
want to do her intro? Let's
on
throw
the
it on here
Saturday.
as B-roll. You do Carrie's intro, and I'll surprise her with it.
Oh, I don't even know. Okay. Gotta think. Just gotta come up with. All right. How am I gonna say that? All right. What am I gonna say? Because I would have Carrie introduce herself in my typical world. So say, all right. So, and we have Carrie Gard, who is the CEO of MKG Marketing, who has relocated herself from the wilds of the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States, and now is living in none other than the Guernsey, UK, which for all of us who aren't in Guernsey, UK, wish we were, right? Raising a couple kids out there, running her business, CEO, and has been running her podcast for a couple years. So let's give it up to Carrie Gard, CEO of MKG Marketing.
For those of you tuning into Carrie's show, that was Trevor, last week's show. And if you missed him, that's not the right terminology. If you didn't hear his show, then you need to rewind and go catch him. This is fun.
Perfect.
Carrie's also a classical musician. I'm going to bring that up
Yeah.
when she's on.
Yeah. Oh, she's fantastic. She has been super supporter and so much fun. In fact, I'm going to go live with her next week. I think Tuesday, maybe.
13th.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So everybody, you're going to, because of my slow editing, let's do the 13th for the Catch Carrie. I'm sure there'll be a recap or a highlight reel or a YouTube knowing Trevor, and the 17th, same as well.
Yes, she'll be live with me on the 13th at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time and at 8 a.m. on the 17th Pacific time. So we're
all right, buddy. Before I hit
Yeah.
the stop button, like all good artists, I steal. And I stole the exit question from our friends at We Are for Good, John and Becky.
Okay.
Nice nonprofit changemaker podcast.
Mm-hmm.
They always ask, "What's your one good thing? What's your moment of impact? Your moment of change? What's that one thing that influenced your life to make you better or to be inspired?"
One good thing that impacted me to be better, man. Oh, there's so much out here right now. It's like a fire hose.
What's the top thing that comes to mind that you're seeing happen right now that you wish there was more of? How about that?
I think the thing that happened or is and has happened for me in the last year was the notion of LinkedIn 2.0. And I think that has changed now, but it was a collective uprising and a collective acceptance that we as business people, we as middle-aged business people in particular, could connect beyond just our resumes. And it all kind of bubbled up at once, right? And you and I, that's how you and I met. That movement, that desire, I think has been a really good thing for me. It has been energizing and and has been sustaining. And have we grown from that? Is that still like where my focus is? No, not really. Right. I can only sustain so many intense relationships, but have I created them? Yes, I absolutely have. Has that been a good thing? Yes, it absolutely has. And I treasure that, and have nursed it and have continued to invest in that. So that has been a really good thing, even if we're somewhere along LinkedIn 3.0 or 4.5 or something else, because things, continues to evolve.
Hey, man, you've been a steward in making that happen. So, folks, that was Trevor. We could probably go on for 6 or 7 more hours knowing the two of us, but
I
that's
don't
the
know about
best
that,
part
but
about you being a media mogul is that it's easy to find him. And he is on LinkedIn 2.0, even though he tried to allude to me being a middle-aged LinkedIn lurker. I want to remind everybody that I'm an elder millennial, also known as a zennial. So I did have a cell phone and a rotary phone. I did fess up to my Nokia candy bar phone. But
I did.
Trevor, dude,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
By all means. Thank
And
you. Thanks for having
yeah,
me.
thanks
It's
for
an honor
taking
and
a
a
slap.
privilege. You betcha.
All right, I'm
Absolutely.
going to hit stop. Don't log off.